Good morning. Welcome to our daily devotion. I trust many of you remember that we were going to start doing them at 9 o'clock now. School's out. People don't have schedules like they had before. So we decided to do these devotions at 9 o'clock rather than 8 o'clock, at least during the summertime. So I trust that many of you will remember this, I hope, and watch this live. It's Monday, June 14th. The month is half over already. And we're going to get into a scripture here in Matthew about Judas. Before I read it, morning, John. Before I read it, imagine Judas now. He was one of Jesus' disciples. He got to see everything that Jesus did. Saw all the incredible miracles that he saw Jesus perform. Saw Jesus miraculously feeding 5,000 people with just a few loaves of fish and bread and a few fish. Saw all of that. Imagine if you had seen what Judas saw firsthand. Would you have walked away from Jesus? Let's read this. It says, Then one of the 12, the one called Judas Iscariot, went to the chief priest and asked, "What will you be willing to give me if I hand Jesus over to you?" So they counted out for him 30 silver coins. From then on, Judas watched for an opportunity to hand him over. Judas willing to sell Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. Morning, Veronica. Morning, Paul. What would you ever think of selling Jesus? Would you ever sell him for 30 pieces of silver or something? Well, I've seen many people that have served the Lord, loved the Lord, and then leave him for different reasons. Judas left for money and greed. Listen, we've read this before, but let me read it again in 12:6 of John, where it says, Then one of the disciples, Judas Iscariot, who later was to betray him, asked, "Why did you sell this perfume for a year's wages?" He did not say this because he cared about the poor, but because he was a thief. As keeper of the money bag, he used to help himself to what was put into it. So Judas had a love for money, and he had greed. Colossians defines this. In Colossians 3:5, it says this: "Put to death, therefore, whatever belongs to your earthly nature: sexual immorality, impurity, lust, evil desires, and greed, which is idolatry." So idolatry is literally greed. It's loving other things ahead of God. Exactly what Judas did. Loved money more than he loved Jesus. And after everything that he saw Jesus do. So what are some of the things that Christians sell Jesus for? I know Christians that loved and served Jesus, but then fell in love with someone else who didn't love and serve Jesus. And then they put that love ahead of their love for Jesus. This is why in 2 Corinthians, God tells us this, to be careful of this. This is especially true for young people. It says, "Do not be yoked together with unbelievers. For what do righteousness and wickedness have in common, or what fellowship can light have with darkness? What does a believer have in common with an unbeliever?" So I have seen people that loved the Lord, walked with the Lord, and then fell in love with someone that didn't. And as a result, put the love for that person ahead of the love for Jesus, and pretty soon they weren't loving and serving the Lord. I've seen Christians that love and serve the Lord and then went off to a college, sat under different professors that caused them to start questioning their faith. I know plenty of, morning Anna, I know plenty of young people that professors started questioning, how can you be a Christian and be so narrow-minded to think that only Christians go to heaven? What about the millions of other people that are good people? You can mean to tell me that they don't get to go to heaven? They start questioning their faith. And many times it happens because they were grounded in a church before they went off to college, and then they stopped going to church, so they stopped being fed spiritually. And as a result, they started being fed from the evil one, from the world, and and lost their love for Jesus. I saw Christians that love and serve the Lord, and then they start earning a lot of money, causing them to become materialistic. Things start taking a priority over Jesus. When you don't have much money, you have time to serve the Lord. You can't go on vacations. You can't go to fancy restaurants. But when you start making money, all of a sudden you can go off on vacations. You can start doing things, and then all of a sudden you're doing things on Sundays where you don't have time to go to church. I see Christians that love and serve the Lord, and then they grow up and become good athletes, and they put sports ahead of Jesus. I mean, think of it. Most sports happens on Sundays. When I used to drive by, going to Palms, and I drive by Palms Park there, and you'd see way more people out there in the park than you saw in church. We talked about this last night at Collision, for those of you that weren't there, about our battle against spiritual forces of evil. We're in constant battle against Satan, whether we want to or not. We're in battle, and we're fighting demons. We're fighting the demons. Some people didn't weren't to church last night because they were fighting the demon of alcoholism. Some weren't at church because they're fighting the demon of drugs. They're fighting the demon of materialism. They're fighting all kinds of demons. The same things I'm talking about now that cause them to put other things ahead of God, ahead of the Lord. No Christians that love and serve the Lord, but become famous and allow others to serve them instead of them serving others. So see that constantly. I see Christians that love and serve the Lord and become lazy, allowing laziness to keep them from doing the Lord's work. This has happened this past year with the pandemic. Churches are seeing so many. I just talked to a young man at church last night that goes to another church, and it's a well-established church that was growing before the pandemic. It was a huge church in Los Alamitos, and they've combined services now because there's less people coming. Why? Because they've gotten lazy. They were in the pandemic, and they were so used to not going to church that now all of a sudden they don't even think of going to church. Some of that is just laziness. Now, I could go on and on and on, but I think you get the picture. So what is it? What is it that maybe you put before the Lord? What are some things that I think of last night at Collision, and gosh, there was maybe half of the people that were there the first Sunday that we met. What happened? What happened? Well, why do they not return? Well, many of them. This is summertime. Many of them go on vacations. They're fortunate enough to have the finances to be able to do that. Others that didn't have the money to go on vacations that were not there probably were not there because they were just too lazy to get ready to go. Now, it's no excuse now on Sunday nights, because it used to be Sunday mornings where there was an excuse about getting up and getting the kids dressed. But now this is Sunday evening where you run out of those excuses. So what keep not just from loving the Lord? What keeps you from church? What keeps you from going to church? For those of you that didn't go yesterday to church, what kept you? I know, Imelda, that with you and Amante, it's health issues, and I've been praying. Imelda, I pray for Amante every single morning. I pray for him that he could get strong enough to come back and be able to visit Collision. Miss him playing his harmonica. Miss seeing your smiling face when you walk in the door, Imelda. So I'm praying that God will make you well enough to come back. So you have a good reason. But what John, you're always there. But what are the reasons that people use? Right? And I say reasons, that excuses probably what I should put. What are the excuses that people use for? Some are reasons and some are excuses for not going. And as I talked last night in church, we need to grow our faith. And one of the best ways to grow your faith is to hear the message. Romans 10:17, your faith grows from hearing God's word. So what are some of the things that keep you away from the Lord? The first commandment that God gave, the very first one, was this: you shall not make for yourself an idol from anything in heaven or on earth or anything below. You shall not bow down to them or worship them. You shall not have other false gods ahead of me. What are false gods? It's materialism. It's all the things that I just mentioned here. Anything that you put ahead of God, anything you put ahead of God is a false god. And when you put them ahead of God, you are worshiping them. So if you put sports ahead of God, you are worshiping sports. If you put money ahead of God, you are worshiping money. What are the things that you're worshiping? What are the things that keep you from the Lord? Think about this. And unfortunately, most of you that are watching this, you don't have this issue. Every name that I've seen here so far is you were there last night from Collision. So it's the ones that were not there, and it's the ones that are not watching these videos that are moving further and further away from the Lord. It doesn't mean they're not saved. I'm not saying about not being saved. I'm just saying they're not growing in their faith. They're not storing up treasures in heaven. They're not building up rewards. Their faith is, instead of their faith growing, the faith is diminishing. And that's what happened to Judas. Judas allowed greed. He allowed his love for money to come ahead of the Lord. And he walked with the Lord, as I said, firsthand with the Lord. How could he do that? How can we do that? Yet many Christians do. Thank you for watching. We'll continue doing this at 9 o'clock. And as you know, this coming Sunday is Father's Day, so we will not be meeting with Collision on Father's Day. So I trust that you will have a good day, loving and serving the Lord. Okay? God bless. Have a great day, and I'll see you tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. Bye.